every one of us, no matter our age, has learned a life lesson or a faith lesson from someone else. Maybe it was a parent or a grandparent or some relative, or maybe it was a good friend. This morning I want us to have an invitation to help create this message. We're going to carry on from the good example that the children have given us, and I want you to take a moment to think about a lesson that you have learned that is really important to you. And when you've thought of that, I want you to turn to someone next to you and share with them what that lesson is. Okay? Think of a lesson that someone has taught you that is really important to you. It doesn't have to be, a great, wonderful, monumental thing, just anything. And turn to your neighbor and share what that is. Go.
My mom taught me how to flow. That's
Anyone want to share a lesson you've learned? Anyone have a great one that you just think everyone else needs to hear? Yes, Kathy. Do unto others. Anybody else? Just pipe it out there. Be thankful. No. They're pointing at each other and saying no. We'll let you keep that lesson to yourself. This too shall pass. Do you want to hear Stephanie's?
It wasn't like that.
Don't lick a pole when it's cold. That's very timely for today. Children, pay heed. It is great to think about the lessons that we have learned. One of the ones that I thought of was just like what Judy was saying about the importance of saying thank you. That's something we learn as a little child. We're taught to say please and thank you. But I've decided that's a lifelong value. To share our gratitude, to express appreciation. Think about how you feel when someone thanks you for something you've done. And think about how easy that is to share that with someone else, to help them feel that same sense of gratitude and appreciation. When we acknowledge someone for who they are and the gifts that they give, it's a great way of saying that we're connected and we want to appreciate them. Well, now that you've thought about the lessons that someone has taught you or shared with you, let's take it to the next level. It is true that you are going to pass on something to future generations. Even you who are children and youth are going to pass along something of you to someone else. So let's start to think about what that might be. Maybe it is something of your history. Maybe you're going to call Larita and say, I want to do my genealogy so that I can give my family history to my future generations. Or maybe what you want to pass along is not quite that organized. Maybe it's even kind of haphazard, that whatever strikes you at the time is what you want to share with someone and pass along. There are others, perhaps, who may just keep silent. And sometimes silence is a way of communicating with others things that you want to pass along. And then we get to some of our more profound lessons, like your values, things that are really important to you, that you would like to share with someone for their future life. And maybe part of that is your faith and how you live it each day. So now I want you to carry on participating in this message today and think about a moment. Think a moment about what the most important thing is that you would like to share and pass on to someone else, even if it's just today and not a great big long thing in the future. What's the lesson that you want to give someone? Now, it doesn't have to be an older person passing down something to a younger person. It can be a friend or a family member or the person sitting right next to you. What is something that is important to you that you want to pass along? Tell your neighbor about it. What are some of those great lessons that you want to pass along to someone in the future? Puppies. Ask first. What other great lessons to pass along? Yes. Love unconditionally. Now that's something to pass along for sure. What else? Mike?
Help people.
Help people. Carter? 10 Commandments. Natalie? Don't cry over spilled milk. Yes, Jane? Don't get hung up on having stuff. Great lessons, Carter. Don't have a cow. I didn't know you were old enough to know that phrase. Yes? Don't let chickens get in with the dogs? That sounds like a pretty good advice. Francis? When you look around, when you think things are going pretty bad, you can sometimes find someone who's got it worse than you. Yes, Dan?
Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Sometimes literally. Righto. What else? Yes, Carolyn. Shh, shh, shh. you give hope to today? A message from college students, for college students. Anyone else? We should be writing all these down. Well, as I said a moment ago, sometimes our greatest lessons can also come from our children. And one of the lessons that I would share with you, with Xander's permission, you saw me ask him. One of the lessons he's teaching us today is that he made a decision to be here in Sunday school and worship instead of participating in a ball game this morning. So sometimes our lessons are pretty significant choices we make as well. Thanks, Xander, for letting me tell that. You know, as we live and grow in our lives, we are blessed to receive so many lessons. And we give thanks to God for all those lessons. And as we've heard, as you've shared with each other and as we've shared together, lessons can come to us in so many different ways. Sometimes they're very direct. They might be a lesson in a Sunday school class or some other kind of study or something that we read. They might come from reading the Bible. Or it might be a very clear story that comes to us from another person sharing from their life. Sometimes our lessons come to us out of great joy. And sometimes we learn lessons the hard way, facing some new realities or even some difficult choices. Lessons may come to us when we remove ourselves from our ordinary experience and open up new perspectives. So what do we do with all these lessons besides write a book? I believe that we weave them all together in ways that form our spiritual life. As Christian people, we have the great teacher Jesus, who gives us lessons in life and love and faith. And whenever we are thinking about our own life and how we live in this world of ours, we have the ready resource of the teachings of Jesus. You know, Jesus taught everywhere. He taught in the synagogues and the fields, out on the hills and in the neighborhoods. And one of Jesus' most important teachings was called the Sermon on the Mount. Now it is called that because Jesus literally was teaching from a hill in Galilee, which is the northern part of Israel. I'd like to share with you a brief description that's been written by Rabbi Mark Gellum and Father Thomas Hartman about this lesson from Jesus. Here's what they say. In that lesson, Jesus taught that poor people are just as close to God as rich people, even closer. He taught that we should not toot our own horn, but be quiet and modest and humble. He taught that we should help everyone who needs help. He taught people to make peace. He taught people to be gracious with other people. He taught people to care about what was fair and what was right. He taught people to do things for good reasons. And most of all, he taught people never to give up. Sounds a little bit like some of the lessons we heard among ourselves this morning. Jesus also taught sometimes by telling parables. That's another word for story, a parable. And parables are not only good stories, they are stories that teach us how to live and how to do the right thing. There was that parable that Jesus taught about a father who had a son who was rebellious and independent. But the father never gave up on his son and helped him to be a good person. That story teaches us to never give up on family. And Jesus told about a shepherd who went out to look for that one lost sheep, even though all the other sheep were okay. And that story teaches us to never give up on anyone, because God never gives up on us. Jesus also told a story about a person called a Samaritan. The people Jesus was talking about, those Samaritans, were thought by others to be bad people. But Jesus said that this Samaritan was a good person because he stopped to help someone even though he didn't have to. And this story teaches us to help people who need help. And then Jesus told that story about that little bitty mustard seed that grew into a great big tree. And this story teaches us that our faith may start out small, but it can get very, very big if we just let it grow. Jesus is our example of living today's psalm. Listen again to those words. Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter sayings from of old, things that we have heard and known that our ancestors have told us. We will tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord, that his might and wonders he has done. Rise up and tell them to the children, so that they should set their hope in God, and forget not the works of God, but keep his commandments. Each of Jesus' teachings is a lesson to us on how to live a faithful life. Maybe this week you'll want to read one of those lessons from Jesus. I suggest looking in Matthew or Mark or Luke. These lessons are a guide for us and a model for how we continue to share the lessons of our faith. We share those lessons so that we may constantly grow. We know that learning lasts every single day, and that we grow in our spiritual life and our love for others. And that spiritual life includes all of us, every part of who we are. Our minds, our emotions, even the way we care for our bodies, and the use of our lessons and our resources. Our spiritual life involves how we open ourselves to the presence of God in our lives, and the lessons that we learn about God and God's love and work in our world. We have a great privilege and responsibility to pass along the lessons that are important to us. As parents and children, as friends in school, as friends in faith, sharing in church and in life. And so let us go forth from this place today, continuing to tell the story, continuing to talk to our neighbors, continuing to share the lessons that we have. For we do give thanks to God for the many lessons in our lives. May God bless us and strengthen us to live and share the lessons of our faith, that we may live and serve as faithful disciples. Thanks be to God. Amen.